Amos, karibu sana. Welcome. As we wait for other people to join, and even as we wait for us to start our meeting, maybe we can be able to introduce ourselves, though, for the people who are already in the call, so that we can know who is here with us, the engineers, the HRs. I'm just going to start in randomly. I'm going to start with Samuel. Samuel was the very first person who joined us. So Samuel, karibu sana. Tell us who is Samuel, and we can be able to pick it up from there, so that we can just, as we wait people to join in. Is Samuel still in the call? If Samuel is not there, Maurice Chazara. Maurice, you can just introduce yourself as we wait for people to join in. Tell us what you're happy about for the week, and we can pick it up from there. Lydia, I see you are in the call. Karibu sana. You can just introduce yourself.
Hey guys, hope you can hear me. I am on the road, I'm sorry. I am Lydia. I am a HR practitioner. I work in a branding company, and I've known about this session through Vanis, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Karibu sana. Yes, Maurice. Hello to you too. How are you doing? Karibu sana, Kelvin. Welcome to the Engineers Talk with Centurion System. Karibu sana. What is that? We understand. Asante Maina, karibu sana. We were introducing ourselves as we wait for people. I'm going to give them at least 4 minutes so that we can be able to start our session for the day. Fantas, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and thereafter we'll have Kelvin to introduce himself. Kindly let's just introduce ourselves as we wait for people and give them time to join in for the session today. Skita, karibu sana. So, Fantas, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then as we give people time, I'm going to give them 4 minutes so that we can be able to start our session for the day.
Thank you so much. My name is Fantas Maina. Instrumentation and control engineer with Coptech Engineering. I'm glad to join in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Karibu sana to the engineering talks with Centurion Systems. Kelvin Maina, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Kelvin Kavita. I am an electrical engineer. I work for Centurion Systems. Asante sana.
Karibu, thank you so much for joining in today, Kelvin. I'll almost forget one person because he has introduced himself to us. Eugene, can you say hi to the team? Peter Gary, karibu sana. We are just about to start our talk for the day.
Oh, hi people. I'm Eugene. I'll be handling the technical side of things today. Karibuni sana.
Thank you, Eugene, for the good work you're doing behind the scenes. Peter Gary, Peter, karibu to the Centurion Engineering Talk with Centurion System for today. You can just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, able to the Gary, like
Thank you, karibu sana. People, time to join us. We're just about to start our talk today. We are 1 minute so that we can be able to start as the others come in and join us. Hilda, karibu sana. We were introducing ourselves. If you're in a position to, kindly go ahead and just introduce yourself. to introduce yourself? Okay, we're going to start our talk for the day. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining in on the session today. I know the session today is a session that most of us talk about on our day-to-day basis, and every person is always eager to know what does it mean to be in AI space. For those who don't know me, or for those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Vanis Olal. I'm a human resource professional with a dynamic or a variety range of working within the engineering space. I work with an organization called Cementers Limited. Cementers is a construction industry, so that will tell you that I work with a lot of engineers around. And when we're talking about AI within the engineering space, is something that I can deeply relate with. And today, Centurion System decided to organize for us an engineering talk so that we can be able to understand how AI does, or how AI affects the engineers. And when we're talking about engineers, we're not only talking about the people in the field, we're also talking about the technical team, people like Eugene. Centurion Systems Limited is a trailblazing technology firm with 35 plus years of experience in industry, 4.0 industry automation, motion control, and lean manufacturing. That is all about Centurion. They mostly work with manufacturing industries around. So for those of us who are either in manufacturing or construction, you can be able to check with Centurion system so that they can be able to support your system. My technical person, kindly swipe the screen. There were some of the exclusive services that Centurion system has been able to offer, or the training partners that they've been able to work with are on our screens. If we can be able to check our screens, the most common is Bosch, Krones, and Siemens. So you can, thereafter, there will be a link that will be shared in the event. You'll be needing Centurion system services so that you can be able to check on their brochure and what they mostly deal with and what they can be able to offer, especially if you are in the engineering space. And today, since they're a technological organization, or an organization that focuses mostly on giving out technological services and motions to manufacturing and engineers, Centurion Systems decided to organize for us a talk today, so that all the engineers in the house, not only for engineers, but for almost all of us, so that we can be able to understand how AI can design and even make real-time decisions. Because most of us currently, not only in engineers, are affected with the AI, but also all of us who are either in HR, in every space that you're going to, you might be able to listen to people talk about AI. So we've worked with AI or automation in our projects, for us who are in projects based. And I understand that some of us are even in the fear of maybe AI taking over their projects. So today we want to know what are some of the key aspects, or what are some of the key skills that engineering or AI cannot be able to replace in our workplaces. Because in most cases, we normally tell our people that AI is coming to take your jobs, but do we know that there are roles for the human age that AI cannot be able to take? So that is why we are here today. And with us today, we've organized a speaker that who can be able to talk to us on AI, human age, as far as AI is concerned. And most of us have either interacted with her, or some of us are meeting her for the first time. And if you're meeting her for the first time, our speaker for the day is Dorcas Njuguna. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end of this session. But first, I'm going to give her the chance to talk to us about what AI is all about and what are some of the human age skills that are irreplaceable with AI. When you talk about AI, should we be in a position to panic, or when our individuals say, or our organizations say that we're going to automate everything? Is it something that would make us panic, or is it something that is coming to give us hope or ease in our work within the workspaces? So I'm going to invite Dorcas. For those who don't know who Dorcas is, Dorcas Njuguna is a human resource manager. I know most of us, when we talk about AI in human spaces, we expected someone within the engineering place to come and talk to us, but we want to hear from someone who works with these engineers and what they really understand by what we call by human age skills that are irreplaceable by AI. Dorcas Njuguna is the founder of Women in HR Kenya, trainer, Maxwell Leadership Team member, Ikigai certified coach. And recently, Dorcas was a certified I Am Remarkable facilitator. I Am Remarkable is a program that it aims at building one's self-confidence and help you to identify yourself within your own space. Dorcas Njuguna is a distinguished leader in the field of human resource and leadership development, recognized as one of the top 200 biggest voices in leadership to watch in 2025. Her impact and influence were further acknowledged when she was named one of the 11 inspiring women in HR leaders in Kenya by People Harm. If you are in HR spaces, you know when we talk about Dorcas Njuguna is a name that we all honor and is something that we all look forward to growing up to. With a career spanning to over 18 years in corporate, Dorcas has made her mark across various industries, including investments, retail, training, and hospitality, rising from entry-level roles to position in the C-suite. Hizo ndio zile position tunasemanga the corner offices. So Dorcas rose from entry-level position to the C-suite level position, holding a higher diploma from the Kenya Institute of Management. Currently, it is called MUA, but initially it was KIMS. A degree in human resource from Kenya Methodist University, and nearing completion of her MBA in strategic management from JKUAT. Dorcas' academic credentials are as impressive as her professional achievements. She is a certified talent optimization consultant, TOC, for those who will need someone to come and talk to their organization on talent management, a certified HR professional, CHR, and has earned multiple certifications, including DAPE advocacy, allyship, and Google's I Am Remarkable facilitator by Lenin Girls Program facilitator. Dorcas is the founder of Women in HR Kenya, where she advocates for women's empowerment and leadership in HR. As the lead trainer at IHR Solution, she delivers impactful training and consulting services to help organizations optimize talent, management, and leadership strategies. She is also a certified coach speaker and trainer with Maxwell Leadership Team, offering expert guidance to individuals and team looking to excel in their leadership journey. Her dynamic energy, deep expertise, and engaging approach have positioned her as a sought-after consultant, coach, and thought leader. Dorcas continues to drive change and inspire excellence in the HR space while leading Women in HR Kenya and working as an independent consultant at IHR Solutions. Kindly join me in welcoming Dorcas this evening as she's going to give us a speech on human age skills that are irreplaceable by AR. So I hope we are ready to learn, and I'm also looking forward to learn more so that I can be able to, when I'm talking to engineers, it can be something that it can be relatable. So karibu sana Dorcas, feel free to use the floor. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end of the session. Karibu sana Dorcas.
Thank you very much, Vanis. And to everyone who has joined, one of the few things I always encourage someone when we are starting such sessions, figure out who needs to be on the call and always invite them. One of the interesting things in the Centurion system talks for engineers, I'm always the moderator, so it's interesting that now I'm a speaker and I'll be able to share this. So just before I start, there's something interesting Vanis has mentioned, and I want to start from there because I'd want us to have an interactive session where we are both participating in a way that is going to be helpful for all of us. So one question I would like to ask you is, which is the one, I would say, particular skill you think you would expect AI to come and replace, either in your role or either in the world? So that is, which particular skill do you think AI would be coming to replace, either in your role or in the world? And as you think about it and as you put that in the discussion, one of the things I want to encourage you is be very honest with yourself, because some of these questions you find yourself either lingering and asking yourself alone, or in a discussion, somebody telling you, oh, by the way, the particular skill you have or the particular role you are in will soon be taken by AI. And what does it mean if that is the case? So today we're going to look at the human edge soft skill that AI can't replace in industry. And one of the interesting things that Vanis has mentioned in regards to my portfolio is there's a lot of interaction of me with people or organization. And therefore, there's one aspect in terms of what has enabled me to be able to achieve that. And it's some of the soft skills that we're going to look into. So without further ado, I won't delve so much into who I am because it has been mentioned, and I'll just get to the main objective of what we want to cover today. So we would like to explore how soft skills remain crucial in Industry 4, despite automation and AI advancement. And also, we will look at how far we have come as a nation in regards to automation, because AI has come to advance a lot of things, but also remember that one of the crucial things that has been a game changer in our industry right now is that we have been at a certain phase when it comes to one, the manufacturing industry, two, in terms of development, and three, in the different generations that are being represented in at work. And therefore, AI advancing some of these things have been very rapid, and it has required us to do like a quick overhaul change to make sure that we adapt to the current times that we're in. So we're also going to cover Industry 4 in terms of characterizing AI, automation, IoT, and also data-driven decision-making. And then we're going to a little bit get into the introduction of human AI collaboration concept and AI as a tool. Now, this is an overarching training that is offered by Centurion system. So I'm going to give you a snippet of it, and we'll also understand how do we then show up as engineers and non-engineers in the different workspaces that we're in, and how well can we collaborate with other people to ensure that the skill sets that we have enable us to be ready for the future. So as I had asked, what is one skill you believe AI can never replace? And I would want us to just pause there and try and figure out which that particular skill it is. And also be able to know that some of these things, we want to take them to the one country you're in or where you are in terms of age. So first, looking at our environment, where we are, and this we can refer to actually the last World Economic Forum report, not for 2025, but actually for 2020 and 2021, it talked about quiet quitting. It talked about how we're going to disconnect and not have the everyday work we're used to, 8 to 5. Now, by the time that report was being shared in Kenya, it did not apply then. It has come to apply, and this you get to see from the people who are around you. From last year, between last year, I would say actually half of 2023 to onwards 2025, where somebody is saying, I would rather have a part-time role, but multiple of them. Now, the gig economy out in the world had already started. So when you're thinking about a skill that cannot be replaced by AI, I would want you to think about the World Economic Forum reports, because they pick skills that are either fading away from the normal 8 to 5 and emphasizing on the skills that are required in either the part-time roles or the gig economy, I would say, frenzy that has been building up in each and every continent, and also here in Africa. So why am I emphasizing on the gig economy? When you think about our current state in Kenya, we have certain platforms that are enabling young generations and also any other professions who want to get into the gig economy. So the gig economy means you do not stay in your normal 8 to 5, but you find yourself still earning within an ecosystem that enables you either to work 1 a.m. to 3, or even sometimes work from midnight till 6 a.m. So when you're thinking about such platforms, you should be thinking about things like Ajira, the program where you get to equip yourself with a certain skill, and then you work either for another organization that is not based here in Kenya, or you work in an industry setting that requires you to work in certain shifts. So it can be hospitality, it can be on telco when it comes to customer care, or it can be on the humanitarians when it comes to virtual assistant roles, where it has become now a thriving space right now in Kenya. And one of the interesting things, if you notice, for those areas I've mentioned, there's one common skill that the AI cannot replace. And that is on communication, having a face-to-face interaction with a human being, or having an interface where you're using communication through certain devices to enable you reach the other person you need to communicate to. Now, thinking about engineering, you'd also see the same effect where there are certain organizations who are shifting now to a 24-hour, I would say, system, or you have and this you can research because it's something that is growing across the nation, what we call a FIFO worker. So a FIFO worker is somebody who comes in, works for a certain set of weeks, but is not what Centurion system. There was a role that had been posted and people showed interest, which was in Saudi. A FIFO worker is somebody who would work within a set number of hours or weeks and then take a break within 2 or 3 weeks. Majority of FIFO workers are either in the mining sector, are either in the engineering sector, or either in construction sector. And you're only required to come in, do an overhaul project for a certain period of time, and then exit. Now, when you think about such, you'd look at the skill that is required and then understand which is that one skill that AI can't replace. And I hope those examples, which are very realistic, give you a glimpse on some of the areas we're going to cover. Now, what do we hope to achieve when it comes to this conversation? There are particular skill sets that we're going to cover, but we're going to break them down into a sense that interacts with what we do right now, but also enables you to know how and where it applies. Now, soft skills being very critical on my end as a human resource is when I'm assessing or when I am recruiting for my clients, one of the most requirements, especially for an engineer, is critical thinking and problem solving. Now, when you're thinking about how do you interlink critical thinking and problem solving when it comes to engineering and also non-engineers, it's because half of the task for an engineer is to figure out what is going on, what is the actual problem that is at hand, and the actual problem, how is it going to be addressed even before you get to the machine. And I'll give examples because one of the interesting things is, having worked in Centurion System, having worked with engineers, there's always the challenge of, you are in HR, how do you understand some of the aspects of engineering? And I'll let us pick one machine as an example so that we look at critical thinking and problem solving into play. I'll pick a speed drive. Certain speed drives work in a way that anytime you switch it on and it goes in full speed, you would be expected to understand how this particular machine stops, or basically how it is supposed to be maintained in terms of usage. So one of the interesting things that I have come across in my experience dealing with engineers is, you get somebody out of a good university, they've graduated, they've done everything, they've done the internship, you give them an equipment, and the first thing they do is they start interacting with the equipment without really understanding, contextualizing, this is exactly what I'm supposed to use the equipment for. Not that they don't know, but the understanding on how to use means the maintenance. How do you ensure you switch it off? How do you ensure that you understand the certain aspects where you might find yourself either in trouble in terms of it injuring you, or you might find yourself injuring someone else. So there was a situation that I remember was reported to us where an engineer actually lost their hand because of switching off a speed drive while holding on it. Now, for the engineers in the house would understand, then it meant that the speed drive was still at its speed of the level of speed that it was in, and it continued at the same level till it slowed down. And that you would think the same way as a moving vehicle. When it either hits or gets involved, your body actually picks that speed until it gets somewhere it can hold. In critical thinking and problem solving is, you have to interpret each and every outcome before it takes place. When it comes to recruitment, those are the things we ask as either a probable question, we either give you assignments to work on, but in that context, we are asking ourselves, will this person be very keen on detail? Will this person look at the most critical areas of this particular machine they're going to use? And will they evaluate and understand the risk level adverse before you undertake any task at all? And once you're able to work on those assessments, then somebody will be able to affirm and say, okay, this particular person first has an understanding of the equipment, theoretical bit. And then the next move would be, now, how do we get to assess their practical side of it? Now, again, at this level, this is at an entry level. As you move up the ladder, critical thinking becomes even more robust, because now you're looking at an overall project and asking yourself, how do I find myself solving an issue without even interacting with the equipment? Solving an issue or redesigning an equipment that would solve an issue. And as a senior engineer, you are at a top tier where you have to lead a team and expect them to know what is the next step. Then we have creative and innovation. Now, in creative and innovation, the most important aspect there is, you want to make sure that the team that you're working with has a continuous, or I would say the personal development we always push for. How do you make sure that you use AI to generate patterns, but you come and improve them based on the environment you're in, based on the support area you're giving, or based on the particular segmented area of engineering that you're in? Once you're able to break that down, then the involvement of the of a human, or basically involvement of your team, becomes very easy. Innovation doesn't stop, because remember, the most critical thing is people always find a simpler way on how to do things. For instance, right now, I believe everybody is aware that we have another additional faster, I would say, laptop or machine that has been reinvented by the same people who produce the machines that we're using. So what is it? It is trying to solve and find a simpler way of doing things. And therefore, even if AI comes and wants to, I would say, redesign a car and everything, it will only redesign a car based on the input it has had and the history it has had. But when you think about us human beings, we are looking at beyond our history. We're looking at how people come together to put in ideas so that they're able to innovate together. The other thing is, I would want us to look at, or just understand, a breakdown on emotional intelligence. Now, remember, we're dealing with equipment. However, the equipment are being handled, and the interaction is with humans. So one of the most critical things, especially at a very senior role that we assess on, is emotional intelligence. And this is more than how you handle a team. It's more than how you resolve the equipment issue. It's more about how do you handle the people problem. Are you self-aware, and are you ready to be able to separate the issue with a person so that you're able to now push more for empathy towards the person and be more compassionate? Now, this might be seen as a way of saying, but this, I'll be coming to do maybe the HR work because I'm supposed to take the people problem to the HR. No. As a supervisor, as an engineer, you would be expected to work with other teams. And therefore, some of the things that we'll be able to assess to enable us to know if this person is ready even to handle a bigger team or even take over and the overall organization, it would always start from self-aware and then how you treat others. So EQ helps with leadership, conflict resolution, and teamwork. Now, on conflict resolution, it becomes very critical for you to know, how can I handle the different personalities in my team? And how do I hire for the right personality so that I don't have two conflicting personalities that take control? And one of the things, because I would want to open up a discussion, one of the things that tends to be very critical or difficult is, how do you handle conflict resolution at work, especially when you had told maybe your boss, okay, why don't we handle this issue this way, especially when you're doing a problem solving for either an equipment that is down. And then the decision that is made overall by the senior person becomes even more, it aggravates the situation by either making the equipment get spoiled or an issue arises. As the person who is assigned the equipment as a user, then you are in trouble. So how do you resolve the issue of, I had advised my boss and this happened, so who should be, and how do you handle that whole team dynamics that takes place? Emotional intelligence enables you to first start by understanding yourself. How are you reacting towards people? How are people reacting towards you? How are you reacting towards the situation you're in? And then how are you responding to that situation? And also, how are you separating yourself from that situation in order for you to allow and others to handle the issue? Because remember, as you go up the ladder as a leader, one of the things that you will actually realize is you're more on delegating and motivating people than actually doing the actual work. And doing the actual work is, I would say either maintenance of the equipment, if not maintenance, the actual running of a plant, because then you have a team that is leading you. But if you are part of the team that is the one that is, I would say, being productive in terms of utilization of the equipment, how do you make sure that you're self-aware to know that there are things I will react to that will not bring a difference, but will only bring more issues and therefore not resolve the conflict at hand. So I would want to take a pause there, as I would want to emphasize on communication and collaboration. Now, AI comes in to help us bridging the barriers that we have. Like one of the latest issues that Microsoft has done is it has made sure that any person who uses Teams for communication or meetings, it can now translate. So for instance, if we're in Zoom and we had somebody who's a French speaking, German speaking, Spanish speaking, they would be able to listen to the presentation, but in that particular language. Now remember, it may help solve that issue on communication, but it's not the one that builds the relationship. When you think about how you started your foundation in your career, there are people who have guided you and have enabled you to get where you are. And they've only done so through the relationship and the cordial way of seeing you working, seeing you doing the work well, and therefore being able to mention your name or say that this is actually a good team player and would be an ideal add-on to your team. Now, engineers must explain technical information clearly. One of the interesting things we had last time when we were having our session, the first week of March, I remember Winnie mentioned that one of the things that enabled her to be a good engineer was the simple fact that she took up a sales job that was off engineering, but helped her focus in understanding the interaction of humans. But what interaction was she able to improve on? She was the go-between to explain all the technical aspects of an equipment before it was purchased, and therefore bridged in the gap of the first person who handles the equipment, not the end user equipment user, but the first person who purchases. Because remember, the management or procurement team is the one who would assess some of these things and see and listen to the proposal. So she said one of the critical things that enabled her improve on her career was communication, but also she was able to collaborate, because moving away from a space where you are strong at to a space that is unknown means that you are in moving away from your comfort zone by getting into a space where you have to unlearn and relearn how to do things, but leverage on the new skill that comes into play. So that helped her through well, but also it enabled her to understand some of the challenges that would be there for any person who is not equipped or does not understand the technical terms. Now, in still communication and collaboration, one of the things that we realized is every now and then we have the biggest challenge, and I'd like to first take a pause there. We have the biggest challenge when it comes to people trying to either get a scholarship or even get the next role, because you're so equipped in handling equipment that the last time you looked at your resume, the last time you looked at your LinkedIn post and everything, it's a challenge. So one of the things that I found very, very interesting from a HR perspective is until somebody is very senior in their career as an engineer, I have come to see that those who are starting off, either graduates, unless you are at a certain generation, not so many of them update their LinkedIn profile. So when we are headhunting, yes, we know there's a skill out there, but it becomes a challenge to get that skill because either this person has not left a proper digital footprint of their work, or they have not even left posts that would actually reflect or say that this particular person has done 1, 2, 3 number of projects. So the first biggest ask I always ask somebody is, how are you handling your footprint as an engineer? Are you talking about the projects that you're working on? Are you talking about the equipment that you're conversant with? Are you talking about some of the collaborations that you're having? Because remember, in each and everything you do, if you do not bring it out and share to everyone, nobody will be able to be aware of your capabilities. So one of the challenges I've noticed is that, and that just falls generally under communication. So one of the things I always encourage someone is figure out if you have a mentor, figure out how your mentor got where they got in terms of either their career ladder or up in terms of promotion, and find out, was it through communication and collaboration? Because I'll tell you for sure, definitely you will hear those two words being repeated because of being able to leverage on the information they shared, in the people they were partnering with, and the people they were working together, they collaborated, and that actually enabled them get where they are. One other thing is adaptability and lifelong learning. If you are doing engineering in whatever segment that you're doing, you would need to understand that there are certain aspects that are, I would say, not so clear on a dotted line. And therefore, sometimes when you're looking at the current states we're in, even I would say the equipment that we use, AI has a pattern way of understanding who you are. And that is fast on adaptability. Whatever you do, to you, it may not look so clear, but there's a way AI has come to play into some of the decisions you make. So at this point, it is how do we adapt and change in the environment we're in? And how do we ensure that unexpected changes that happen in either new equipment that are coming into play or a change in the industry, we are not found unaware? One thing I would recommend is if you're in engineering, you have to make sure you're a member of IEEE, because that is where you'll get all the updates that you want. And therefore, being in a professional body enables you get it right in terms of updates on what is happening, and therefore you're able to adapt and evolve to that new space. Secondly, interacting with people like Centurion Systems. People who do training tend to keep up to date with each and every change that is happening in the industry. How? Because halfway through, they're either dealing with the manufacturers. So if something is being phased out, they get involved in knowing what is the next new thing that is happening. And then ensuring that in that new equipment that is coming into play, ensure that you either sign up for it or find a way of learning it from someone else. Why? Because if you're not learning, someone else is learning. And therefore, if you're thinking of enrolling or you're thinking of getting a new job, then the biggest ask you'd be asked is, what knowledge are you bringing to the table that would be indifferent to what everyone else has, either in that organization or in that space of industry? Currently, one of the things that is becoming very critical and serious right now in the place of work is how do you utilize AI, but in a more safeguarding manner where you cannot lose data or share data to third party who can either attack you or they can have a virus in your equipment and therefore have an issue. So your adaptability to the new environment is critical, but safeguarding the data that you have becomes even more and more critical. I would like to hand over to Vanice as I open for some of the set questions that she had put in as we continue.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. That was very impactful, and I hope this one was not only meant for engineers, it was meant for every other person who was in the call, because when you're talking about long life, when you're talking about lifelong learning and you're talking about communication and collaboration, it doesn't just apply on engineering, because when you're talking about innovation as a nature, you also have to be innovative and you also have to be creative. I'm going to open up to the floor for at least 2 questions before I can be able to ask my questions. But before I can be able to ask my questions, or before I can open it up for the floor, Dorcas, because today we are basically talking about engineers. And for us who have worked with the engineers, we know sometimes they can be very, how do you call it? They can be very rigid to change, especially if it is an organization like Centurion that has been there for 35 years. We have people who have worked for 35 years within the same organization. And as well, we have people who are still coming and joining in. What are some of the soft skills that separate great engineers from technically brilliant but ineffective ones? Because most of the time we have changes, engineering change, because how we were building houses before is not the same way we're building houses. So what is that one key skill that you can be able to say, or soft skill that you can be able to say that separate a great engineer from a technically brilliant but ineffective engineer?
So I'll tell you one interesting thing, having interacted with engineers who are at top tier and ones who have been in the game for very long. So top tier and ones who have been in the game for long. One of the things that will get you right out of the market into any market is adaptability and an interest in learning. So what do I mean about adaptability? When you think about, let me pick Mumias as an organization, or I'm just trying to pick an organization that has shut down. So let me stick to Mumias. So the thought process here is you've been working in a sugar factory using certain equipment, and then you find yourself getting an opportunity to go to Singapore. One of the things that you'll discover is whatever equipment they're doing there would be very different. However, how is your adaptability into learning new things? How fast are you? Because if you come and ask me, during COVID, we had a number of people who are very resistant into this virtual working, virtual meetings, and all those things. And that was just communication. Now you can imagine now an engineer who is being told we are going to do an overhaul and we're going to have a new line for automation that is going to make either a bottling farm ensure that we have a production of like 1 million. It will run for 24 hours. And then the first thing somebody says is that even possible? 1 million bottles? How is that possible? But out there in the world, we have organizations that do that because the demand is there. So one of the things I always encourage someone is be very adaptable, because at that situation, at that moment, you'll be challenged. You'll be asked theoretically, how are you going to handle this? And how you respond would really matter, because if I'm going to respond in a resistant manner, then what I'm reflecting, Vanis, is I am not willing to learn. Okay, because remember, how you respond reflects your attitude towards that problem. That's why I was saying, when it comes to emotional intelligence, you need to separate the issue and separate the issue or separate the situation and separate how you feel towards this situation. First, know that as Dorcas, what am I capable of? And then remember that whatever I'm being asked does not depend only on me. I can be asked that question, but I am at a supervisory role, which requires me not to do the actual work, but requires someone else. So for me, it's adaptability. It's very, very important. And also being self-aware. Yes.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm saying self-awareness and also adapting to the change. And let us not be people who want to remind people in organizations how those people who will remind you ulitupata hapa. So let's be quick to learn. Let's be quick to adapt, because especially for engineers, they tend to get hold into the same organization for a very long time, that if you're coming in, they feel like you are struggling to come into this. Dorcas, I'll pose this question to the team that is on board today, so that we can be able to answer ourselves, or to be able to ask ourselves. An AI-driven system we are working with makes a critical error that could delay a major project. For example, you're starting a project, you're starting a building or construction of road somewhere. Then the technical team is blaming the data, because maybe the data they feed into this one was not able to bring out the accurate data if they wanted to measure the meters or the kilometers within the road. The business team is blaming the engineers because now they're saying engineers did not give us the correct data, or they didn't give us what was required for this particular project. What is this one case of skill that you're going to use in this case? Because we've been able to be told all the around Dorcas was mentioned almost 10 for 6 soft skills that cannot be replaced. What is this one soft skill that is going to be replaced? Because we all want to make our work easier. You're working with the engineer, the front end person is telling you didn't give us the back end data. The back end is telling us we didn't get the data from the innovative team. What is this one soft skill that you're going to use so that you can be able to solve the problem? This one I leave it to the floor so that I can be able to hear. What is this thing that you can be able to use as a person so that you can be able to solve AI problems, because it is data, there's technology and everything around that. So I'm going to open the floor so that you can have one person answer that, and then I'm going to have questions. To pick it up from there. So I'm going to leave it open for the floor so that I can be able to hear what are some of the questions that you have burning, especially for engineers, because HRs you already know. Someone is telling you HR AI can be able to recruit, can be able to hire. But for engineers, what is this one thing that has been burning, and that thing that you always feel, if I don't do this at the end of, or in the next 10 years or in the next 5 years, I want to be in the same space?
Repeat the last part.
And they feel free. I was saying I've asked the soft skill that engineers, not only engineers, but every person in this call can be able to use to solve an AI generated problem within organizations. Because sometimes when my machine is not working, I'll blame the IT. But when the IT comes, we'll blame they call it the server. When the server is not working, they blame the KPLC. So what is this one thing that you're going to use within an organization so that you can be able to solve this problem of blame games and telling each other this is what was happening, or this is why this has not been happening?
Yeah. As you think about that question, I'll give you also a scenario that happened between March 2019 to 2020, and then it again also happened in 2024. And this was on the Boeing 737 MAX. There was a crisis, a particular part in that Boeing was causing planes to crash. And I think the total number of deaths that had taken place was 346. And one of the interesting things that the Federation actually came to find out was they could not get insufficient evidence that would pinpoint the pilot. And therefore, they kept researching, and the airline had to actually ground for those years I've mentioned, 2019 to 2020, and again 2024, they had to ground those flights, those Boeings, until there was a clearance to ensure that all pilots were either had taken the corrective measure in terms of training, in terms of self-awareness, in terms of the equipment and everything. But what was actually found out was there was a series of automated, it's called nose device, that was having an issue. So one of the biggest reveals was this was an issue on equipment. It wasn't an issue on people, but it was an issue on equipment because they had put such advanced equipment that when the flight would go off, automatically a crash would happen and no one could check in the black box or anything. So when you're thinking about certain skills for AI and certain skills we bring as human beings, you will discover, and sometimes these are records that as engineers
Dorcas, we lost you.
What is the solution for, malaria? Let's go do some tests somewhere and then figure out what's the best. So there would be a possible consequences on what we might have to lose to find a solution. But when you're using your soft skills, there are certain things that you surpass because you analyze and you review and you're like, the percentage of loss we're about to incur is going to be so high, we do not want to incur it. So one of the things I always encourage someone is look into the past in terms of the challenges that have happened and then review and see where did AI fail and how did we get here. Another simple instance is it should be Genesis Analytics. In the US, when they were doing some of the elections, AI was triggered and used to send or give certain information that favored some of the candidates. So when you're thinking about how well you can utilize AI, there are some people who take advantage, and therefore you might find even at work, not every person will fully utilize AI to the right purpose. So your goal there is, how do I ensure I, one, stand out by itself, and therefore I do not have an issue with the people I'm dealing with, and you're putting people first so that you have less losses. And then two, what do I need to learn from how I'm utilizing AI? Is it to my only advantage, or is it going to be a disadvantage to everyone? And then from there, you'd be able to know which is the right move to make. Either you make use of the maybe solution offering with the AI, or you utilize your own solution offering as a human being. So it's always critical to see what is best to safeguard. When we're talking about soft skills, it's more about you knowing that there's a different way of doing things, but even doing that different can harm or put people in harm's way. Hilda? Not Hilda, sorry. Vanis? I think Vanis,
Sorry. Thank you, Dorcas. Yes, thank you, Dorcas. I was muted. We are also trying to still adapt to technology because we are the people who, when technology came, some of us were like, how are we going to do psychological counseling for online? When an employee tells you, I'm not feeling well, how are you going to understand them? So those are some of the key things that we currently are struggling with, but we're adapting, as you've said. I'm going to open the floor to the team and to the members who are on this call today to ask any questions on the topic that we've been discussing today. And I hope we've learned a lot as far as AI and soft skill are concerned. Because we don't have to be in a position where we are feeling like we're going to be replaced in the next time, because critical thinking is not ending with us. The next time we need to find an AI that is talking to us, so another person has to think about that. So I'm going to open the question to the engineers, the chairs, and any other profession who is on call. Kindly feel free to, if you cannot be able to talk, you can be able to use the chat box on your, so that I can be able to read your questions out loudly to our speaker for today. Waiting for those questions and any other clarifications that you can be able to learn from today.
Hello. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, are there like any regulations within the technology community, big companies, and deepfake. Now, regulation specifically against deepfake, because we find scenarios where deepfake is being used to create sometimes very damaging videos or photos of people, or very misleading photos. Yes.
Thank you, Annette, for that. So there are two things I'll tell you. Let's first start in Kenya. The biggest challenge right now we have, and I think we covered it in the first conversations we had on engineering talks, is we don't have certain regulations that come in to support that. So there are certain instances that you might find somebody will go and, for instance, replicate an image and say this is the authentic bit of it. And because of how technology has advanced, for instance, how we have made my flyer, I can decide I'll go propagate it and make it in a certain way. But who is going to be able to, who has put policies to review it, and where are the measures? So when you're thinking about things like ISO comes in to come and say, these are the standards that should be for XYZ. And based on these standards, then if you go below, then they do not meet the requirement. However, regulations against deep fakes is still a global issue. I know in the EU, yes, they are a little bit advanced beyond us, but here in Kenya, we are yet to get to it. So the challenge is you have other continents who have systems in place to support it, but on our end, we do not have. The other thing is a lot of people have worked hard to get what you'd say is like a litmus test on anything that is made by AI. But also remember, as we are reviewing what is made by AI, if it's true or false, we also have, and this is the part where innovation that keeps on improving and becoming a challenge, we have a lot of people also really working hard to make AI be so, lack of a better word, legit, and look so real that you cannot differentiate between what is AI and what is fake. So there are two things that have happened. One, there's been a research by one lady, and I'll send it in the Industry 4 group, that was able to do an assessment and a thesis on how AI could not tell if somebody is black or woman or what. Why? Because the person who made that particular platform she was assessing was of a particular gender and a particular race. So again, the biggest ask was, if AI can have such a bias, and now you're thinking about now a deep fake, how can we regulate it? Okay, so again, it goes back to who is the innovative mind behind this AI, and how well is it being fed to be able to give you the right response. Up to date in Kenya, I'm yet to see it. I think one of the things we have noticed in Kenya is people are playing around with deepfake, and they're really trying their best to make it come off as the true depiction of particular things. But there's no regulation right now in Kenya that you can stand in court and say that this is a deep fake and therefore we should not be using it. I hope that has helped you, Annette.
Yeah, thank you. It has. Thank you.
Okay.
Dorcas Samuel is asking, great talk, and I do thank Dorcas for your presentation. Populating a LinkedIn profile with the work is good, but how can you, or how do you recommend the duration of posting your achievements? Yes, I think you can answer that, although it is somehow out of the topic, but yes.
Sorry. So, thank you, Samuel. So one of the interesting things, and yes, I really mentioned about engineers or techies or any person who's on the technical side, them not posting about their achievements. When you think about it, you can't really tell that in the next 3 weeks somebody is going to look at your profile, and this is when they'll be looking for the skill. One of the things I encourage someone is at least immediately get your certification, post it, and then start talking about your learnings. So if you post 2 or 3 times based on achievements which are, measurable, then you'll be able to be seen. So think about it this way. So there's a skill I've been trying to learn. So it's been sign language. So I've been trying to figure out how can I, communicate better with other people. So if I get that, one of the asks I would ask myself is, where am I using this skill? And if this skill is very critical in my workspace, then it's important for my audience in LinkedIn to know. Okay, because you're not gaining a skill not just to get the next role, you're gaining a skill to solve a certain problem that is outside there. So what is that particular problem you want to solve? Talk about the solution offering you have as you share your achievements. And then finally, I always encourage somebody to track their achievements on a monthly basis, because on a monthly basis, every new month, you'd have something to talk about and say, you know what, I had this opportunity, I had a project I was running, and, we were successful, the feedback was great, and here's the overview of the project. Those particular conversations become very important when you're posting on LinkedIn. Why? Because you're bringing in your audience to remind them of what to do. It may not only be about your achievement that you got for that month. It may be an achievement for 10 years ago. But this is when you're fully utilizing that skill. Yeah.
Samuel, I hope your question has been answered. But I have noted also, Dorcas, just on line of that, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was just talking my organization on LinkedIn, and I was like, let me look at the people who are working here. I realized the only people who have associated with Cementers is, there's no any engineer, there's no QS, it's only people in accounts, the technical accounts, admin, and HR. I'm not sure why engineers normally feel like they will be able to be sold in other platforms more than where they are currently. And I think it's something they need to adapt with the change in culture. Because the reason after I was talking, I wanted to hire an engineer, and I just wanted to know what is their connection so that I can be able to check what kind of connection can I be able to get in these people. So engineers in the call, kindly, sometimes getting an engineer is very difficult, and if you want to know, we only go and talk you through our connections or through the people that you've worked with or the fellow engineers. So it is also very easier for me to be able to detect how am I going to hire and the kind of person I'm going to hire. So as we learn about soft skills, that is one of them, and we're changing. Dorcas has talked about adaptability, and I think that is my key takeaway today: adapting to the new changing environment so that you can be able to move forward. Dorcas had asked a question, but before that, there is a link that has been shared on Centurion Systems. You can click on the link so that you can be able to know what Centurion offers and what they do in a detailed form, because the only thing I mentioned earlier when we were starting, for those who joined us at the start, was what Centurion does and what it entails. So there is a link on the chat. You can be able to click and be able to understand what we do as a system. Currently, AI is taking over into most of the technical parts and every other thing, and engineers are more into the innovative and creative part, or more into the technical, or more into the strategic part of it. What is these key leadership skills that engineers can be able to learn so that they can be able to stay relevant even as they offer their creative thinking and innovative knowledge into the engineering space?
One of them is emotional intelligence. So one of the things, and this sometimes what people assume, emotional intelligence is very wide, but you also need to appreciate the fact that it's not one of those things that you learn one off and then you're good at. It's a gradual phase, because in each and every different environment you find yourself in, then you would need to know how do you handle that team. And one of the things we do when it comes to recruitment, especially for the technical team, is the more you go up the ladder, you get to do assessments that measure the way you interact with people, or an assessment word that is usually seen is you'll always see yourself doing something called a motivational assessment. So the motivational assessment is a way of trying to figure out if this particular technical person prefers working in a certain way. So do you prefer working with people? Are you well in interacting in big teams? How well productive are you? So you'd be asked a set of questions that eventually now give you an overview of how you would interact, how you would be around teams. And sometimes the technical assessment is more, or I would say the assessment that is given for someone when you're being done for an interview, it is to figure out if you're the right fit. And nowadays, it's not about sometimes the personality, it goes beyond that. How do you communicate? Okay, there are people who work best when they get email comms. So how well do you balance that? So at the end of the day, the biggest ask I always tell someone is, where are you currently? What kind of team are you interacting with? If that team was to be reversed and it was a different, like an opposite team, would you be able to work well? And the biggest answer has always been, if not, you need to attend an emotional intelligence session to enable you capture that in order for you to be able to actually be more productive in any new team that you find yourself in. Vanis?
Oh, I wasn't sure if it was your network or it was you, because you, on my
Sorry.
side, you're hanging, so I wasn't sure you're done with your presentation. Another thing I would like to ask is, what is one practical step engineers can take today to strengthen their human edge in AI-driven world? Can
An
you hear me, Dorcas?
AI-driven world? Yes, just repeat the
Yeah.
first part.
One practical step engineers can take today to strengthen their human edge in an AI-driven world.
I would say one simple thing: network, interact with people. Remember, at the end of the day, it is how you interact with people that gives you the boost energy that you require. So, simple instances: if you are an engineer, what's your net worth around the people you're in? If you're interacting still with engineers, which is good, because then you're filling in a bucket of knowledge that is very critical and important. But then remember, some of the solution offerings that you are offering for where you work, they're meant for humans. Okay, so even if you're in manufacturing, at the end of the day, this thing is going to end up being utilized by human being. How are you relating to these people? By segregating yourself and saying, no, my zone is always engineering, you'll never know how to interact with people. Another thing is, beyond human interaction, remember that as you relate with people, you are improving on your communication. You're improving also on how people perceive you, so that because it's always been known that engineers either come off as introverts. Not all engineers are introverts. Some are extroverts. How do you get to know that? You only get to know that when you move out of your comfort zone. So even as you're in your professional networking spaces, figure out how you can network in other spaces, because that would be the most important and critical area. One, for you to be seen, for people to know who you are, your capabilities. And remember, halfway through, an engineer would refer or recommend you, but the hiring manager sometimes may not be an engineer and they might need to know you. And therefore, putting yourself in that particular space where the right people are would help you build up to it. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Today's session, I'm not certain it is only about engineers because at some extent we're all learning in one way or the other. Because when you're talking about networking and everything, personally, I'm working with engineers who would prefer logging themselves in the office and understand the drawings, I don't know how they normally call the structural drawings and everything. So most of the time, if I want to go and pull them out of the office, I'll start with that joke and be able to approach them. So it's narrowed down to how well do you understand your people as the person who is working with engineers and someone who has been in the engineering space. Dorcas, I'll just ask, this is more personal. You've been working with engineers for a very long time and you might be able to understand how engineers work. How a QS work is not the same way how a civil is going to work, not how a MEP engineering is going to work. How did you manage to be able to bring all these people together, especially in a project that needed all of them to collaborate? But an engineer, civil engineer will say, this road, if we do this way, it is not going to work, or we have to start with the road before we start with the building. And then the MEP coordinator comes and tells you, if I don't do plumbing before you do the roads, there's nothing I'm going to do. So what is this soft skill that you had to apply to them so that they can be able to co-work together? Because dealing with engineers, one thing that has taught me is all of them feel special in their own way or in their own area. Yes.
Everyone is, what they say is everyone is their own expert. So if you enter one section, everyone expects you to agree and not disagree. So one of the interesting things, because I've dealt with manufacturing engineers and also civil, is I've used collaboration. And how I've used it is I've always focused on the person who delivers the most, and I have always used affirmations to remind the person on their contribution. Now, does it work simultaneously very easily? No, it doesn't. Because the minute you enter the team for electricals and everything, one of the biggest asks somebody will come and tell you is, or they will give you as a comment is, this is the most critical space. Without us, we cannot do anything. And you move to another space and a surveyor would tell you, without us, they're not moving. So can they be patient? What I've always done is ensure that each and every parameter that needs to be met by the different teams has been met by reminding each and every person their contribution. One of the biggest challenges that I used to face is when we used to be done for, they call it ISO audits, because I'll be told a certain segment has not achieved its expectation because they didn't have maybe 1 or 2, 3 areas on compliance or something else. And I would emphasize on, if we're not able to get the recertification of an ISO, then we're going to come back and look at the weakest link. So in collaboration and in affirming people of what they bring in terms of their contribution has enabled me to interact with them. And that has actually helped, especially when starting new projects. One of the things I learned is, do not start a meeting if one of the represented departments is missing. Because for them, they will say and they will assume and they'll tell you, the reason why you started this meeting is because you did not require me. And therefore, when you're coming to ask them for work, they would say no. So how do you make sure everybody shows up and plays their part? By ensuring that at the end of the day, this person knows the contribution they bring in, which is very, very important. Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope that helps, Vanis. And remember, the engineers
that has really helped.
They're usually with like 10, 20, 30 years experience. So again, it's not a conversation you rush. It's a conversation you get to understand the team you're dealing with. Yes.
Thank you, Dorcas. That is so impactful. We're learning as we go, understanding the team you're working with, because that is also part of the soft skill. When you're talking about communication, how are you, before you understand the team? I started by saying engineers are people who have worked in the organization as old as the organization is. If it is 35 years plus, believe me, you have someone who has worked for all those 35 years in the same organization. So the person will tell you, I was here when the organization was being started. So how
Yeah.
you're going to approach them and how you're going to deliver the message is something that is very important. Any question from the audience before I can give it back to our speaker to give her parting shots for the day? And then we can be able to close the meeting for today. Any questions from the audience? The link is shared still. Centurion Systems still offer for engineers in the house. This is a time that you can be able to take advantage of. The soft skill courses, the online courses that they normally offer. Kindly click on the link so that you can be able to check on what Centurion System really does, and as an engineer, how will it benefit you. So kindly click on the link if you're in the meeting. I'll give out one last question before we can give out a parting shot to our speaker, and then we can close the meeting. We will want to keep time strictly 1 hour.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. It's on the last thing you've spoken about, that thing where, yes, you'll find someone true to it that has worked in the industry for 35 years or something. Now, on the same, how do you give your message in terms of, I don't know, sometimes you find that people who've been in the profession for longer are more adamant to accepting changes. You find them in organizations, in companies. They don't, okay, it's not that they don't, but they're adamant in listening to, I don't know, new opinions, yes, and giving in to new changes. How do you approach that?
So one of the things I've used, and I remember there's a time, this was way back, there's a time one engineer challenged, I had just introduced a topic. It was actually on speed drive. I think that's why that thing always sticks in my head. We had introduced a topic. It was a young trainer coming to train on speed drives, and somebody just said, okay, so after the introduction of the person, somebody just said, you know what, I have a question. And we're like, yeah, the training has not started. Like, what's going on over here? And they insisted, I have a question. And before we start, I would really want to know what the trainer would want or would do. And therefore, he went on and described the challenge he had on the speed drive and all these things. It wasn't working. It had blocked or something. And this is a very senior person. This is a client. First you're being put on the spot. You've not interacted with the individual. You've not even seen the equipment. And therefore, we're just being told, okay, this machine somewhere is not working. And the trainer went ahead and said, okay, so my name is this, as you've heard, this is this. I'll walk you through what I would probably do if I was the one handling this equipment and doing the maintenance or the repair and maintenance in it. And the trainer went ahead and walked through the engineer, all these things. This is the first time they're meeting. Then immediately we finished the explanation. Again, awkward situation, unexpected. The engineer stepped out, went, and then came back. So at that point, we had not known what was going on until he came back and said, I went to review the equipment and do what the trainer is saying because I wanted to understand if the trainer understands this equipment of ours. And the equipment worked. So you'll be put in a spot by an expert to challenge if you understand. So as a HR profession, one of the things that I'm always put on a spot on is during interviews, when I'm either recruiting for a top engineer, I've assessed even engineers for aviation, and people would throw a challenge just to gauge and know, do you understand the terminologies? Do you understand what we're talking about? And are you about to contribute to this conversation in a useful manner? So one of the things I always tell someone is, you cannot start a conversation with an expert, and this is an expert in any level, if you have not done your research. If I'm walking into a manufacturing company what equipment are they using? Have I asked myself the kind of challenges they have? And then at the back of my mind, I should know these people must deal with experts who already know this equipment. So one of the things I cannot come and say is, we're going to have this change take place. I need to involve them in the change that I want. I need to get their buy-in that I'm part of the team, and collectively we're going to find a solution together. When you approach it that way, where you put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from, get a buy-in from them to trust you, it becomes very hard. And that's why you'll always find somebody who has worked for 30 years in an organization, because I've interacted with those ones, they'll always try and say, hapana hauelewi, you do not know. So first, get a buy-in. And a buy-in does not happen in a week. A buy-in happens from, are you checking on this person? Are you having conversations leading to the change you want? However, if it's an overhaul change that needs to happen, this is where you escalate a matter to a more senior person who's almost at par and equal to them, in order for them to be able to handle the said expert. Without that, what tends to happen is you'll always find there's an issue on one, somebody coming out and saying you're not respecting them, or two, you feeling that they are being disrespectful to you. So always tread carefully, and all these things go back to emotional intelligence. Self-aware enables you to know how you approach a challenge, and then beyond that, you get to know the person, so that when they react, you know that this is an emotion maybe reacting, and it's not meant for you. It's maybe because of the situation, but in a different environment, they would have approached it differently. I hope, Annette, that has helped.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorcas, for that. That is a very elaborative one. And I'll just bring it back to you so that you can give your parting shot. But the key takeaway that I can be able to tell people is the technical skills can get you into the position, but the soft skills will have to be able to keep you in that organization. Because if I'm hiring, I have to hire an attitude of someone. So even if you're an engineer with all the technical skills, you know how to use all the equipments, but your attitude and your personality does not fit into the house, we might not stay longer. So one thing that you all have to know, the same way wanasema you might know someone within the organization, but your skills are going to put you there. The same way you might be able to have all the technical skills we have, but if the soft skills does not match what the organization requires, you might not be there for a very long time. Dorcas, yeah, you can just give us our parting shots, and then we can call it a night. And thank you so much for the impactful session that we've had today. I'm certain it wasn't meant just for engineers, but for everyone in the call.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for the support, Panis. One of the things I would say, looking at it from the angle of the challenges we have seen, especially when it comes to recruitment, you would need to ask yourself, which career path are you taking? And one of the books I would actually refer people to read as a guide on understanding the importance of soft skills is the book by, it's called The Range. And one of the reasons why I'm saying The Range is because it focuses on being a generalist, and it's written by David Epstein. So why The Range? Because the more you keep improving on what you're good at in terms of a widespread, if it's engineering in anything, the better you become. And sometimes starting to specialize on a very early stage becomes the most difficult. So when you're thinking about soft skills, you shouldn't focus on soft skills as a one-way path that may remove you from where you are. You should look at soft skills as a general skill that you require in your everyday interaction with your equipment, your team, and your next future role. So I would encourage people to be able to sign up for the course. And most importantly, ask yourself, what are the areas I've been given as feedback, either during my performance review or during performance appraisal, they would tend to guide you on the areas you might need to improve on, especially when it comes to soft skills. And as I say, soft skills is the new power skill that can elevate you to the next role. Thank you, Vanis, and thank you for everyone who attended the session.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. We really appreciate your insights and we really appreciate the knowledge that you always have to share with us. Tunasema asante. To everyone who attended the session today, I hope you've learned something or you've carried something home. Personally, I've learned a lot. So next time we're having such a session, don't just assume that it is only for engineers. It is normally engineers talk because our main target is engineers, because they're our biggest clients and they're people who it is very difficult to find them in such spaces. So if we're targeting engineers, it's not only open for engineers, but it is open for every person. So next time, feel free to share so that you can be able to be on the same page. Now, Santini Sana, that marks the end of our session for today, and I'll just leave you with one question. What is that one thing that you're going to implement into the organization today as you go? Whatever thing that you've learned from today, especially for us who are in purely engineering spaces, what is that one thing that you're going to implement in your organization as you go? Or you've already isolated that one QS who doesn't talk to any person and say he's an introvert, wachana na huyo. So those are some of the key things that you always have to ask yourself. I'll just like to say thank you for joining once again and good night for today. See you in our next session. Asanteni sana. Feel free to leave the session.
Thank you.